Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Weaver. Welcome to The Audio Analyst. I originally discussed the remarkable performance of the absurdly affordable Chinese-built Fosi Audio V3 micro monoblock amplifiers in episode 199 in early November of last year. Then, just 3 weeks ago in episode 206, taking a Fosi amp or similar device to the next level, I described the notable sonic enhancements that may be easily realized by replacing just one of the three Texas Instruments NE5532 IC OpAmps integrated into the Fosi V3 mono amplifier circuits as delivered from the manufacturer. Further, in closing episode 206, I expressed both my concern and curiosity at having initially ordered only one pair of the SparkoS Labs SS3602 discrete OpAmps for my planned upgrade. When installing that initial set, I found that there were actually three 5532 OpAmps in each of the V3s, not just one as I had initially assumed. Yes, I know, I should have opened them up and verified my suspicions before I placed the order. Also, as noted in episode 206, after replacing just one of the pair of significant TI 5532s in each amp, and then dropping them back into play, the sonic improvements were not subtle. I closed that episode openly questioning how relevant it would be to replace the second significant 5532 in each V3 with another SS3602, or whether the investment of another $170 or so would simply prove to be a matter of diminishing returns. Once the episode posted, I was very pleased and flattered to hear from Andrew Sparks, the principal of SparkoS Labs in Westminster, Colorado, who had chosen to express his positive comments about the episode, wherein he kindly stated that I had done an excellent job detailing the technical side of things. Now, in our following exchange of emails, we discussed the possible purpose and resultant contributions of that second significant OpAmp. So what am I alluding to when I refer to that second OpAmp's location as being significant? Revisiting the details I presented in episode 199, you may recall that I pointed out that the Fosi V3 amplifier has three of the TI 5532 IC type OpAmps, all mounted in easy-to-swap dip sockets, rather than being soldered permanently in place. This allows users to quite easily roll OpAmps, much in the manner that tube gear lovers can swap tubes to optimize their sonic results. Examining the three removable IC OpAmps in the V3s reveals that one of the three, the one mounted nearest the back of the board, is used to accept and integrate balanced inputs to drive the V3s. When used in this way, the OpAmp's high input impedance and differential amplification capabilities permit it to calculate the voltage difference between two input signals, one positive and one negative, allowing a single-ended amplifier to utilize a balanced input. This is a widespread practice, and as a result of its implementation, when using the single-ended inputs on the V3s as I am here, changing this OpAmp would have no real impact on the amplifier's resultant sonic envelope. So that leaves the other two OpAmps located on the circuit board closer to the front of the amp. In my email exchange with Andrew Sparks, we discussed that it had occurred to me that perhaps the pair of OpAmps were used as complements. Though we both found considerable debate and chatter about the matter during our respective research, neither of us was able to find any indisputable support or validation of our assumptions. Regardless, Andrew concurred with this assumption, affirming our mutual suspicion that They were used to drive each half of the differential input for the V3's tiny Class D amplifier chip, the Texas Instruments TPA3255. With that in mind, after voicing my opinion that this assumption deserved testing, Andrew arranged to have a second pair of SS3602 discrete op-amps shipped to me so I could evaluate our theory. As soon as they arrived, I shut down the Fosi V3s in my second space system and pulled them for the upgrade. After removing the two 5/64-inch hex head machine screws on the bottom of the V3, securing the V3's chassis to the Texas Instruments TPA3255 Class D amplifier chip for effective cooling, utilizing the entire chassis as a heatsink, I proceeded to the amplifier's rear plate. And once the slightly longer pair of 5/64-inch hex head machine screws at the outside edge of the V3's backplate were removed, the whole amplifier easily slid open. Now, with full access to the boards, removing the remaining significant stock NE5532 op-amp was a cinch. Again, by gently prying it away from its seat in the DIP 8 socket with a plastic IC extractor tool, I was able to easily pry it from its socket and lift it away. No plastic IC extractor in your toolbox? Don't worry. You may use tweezers or a fine blade micro screwdriver, something like that. Just be careful. After verifying the proper orientation, I had that second replacement SS3602 quickly secured in place. Now, be careful to follow the directions in the SparkoS Labs OpAmp upgrade video, linked in today's description section, and observe the proper pin orientation. If you install the replacement SS3602s incorrectly, with its alignment 180 degrees out of sync, essentially backward, you will not only destroy the op-amp, but you may also damage other components of the amplifier. As I mentioned in episode 206, one of the most likely challenges you will have to deal with during your upgrade process will be reassembling and getting the proper alignment with the power status LED. It is quite easy to bend its leads, changing its freestanding orientation and preventing its proper alignment with the hole in the amplifier's faceplate. While I got the first LED of my two amplifiers aligned on the first try, it took 4 assemblies to restore the proper alignment on the second. Now, one final note here on the disassembly reassembly process. As I had taken these guys apart several times, I had decided to reapply a thin film of thermal paste between the TPA3255 and the chassis heatsink, just to help ensure the uniform heat transfer to the base. Moving them, repeatedly touching them, can wear that original paste thin. Now, if you are curious as to how discrete op-amps are natively able to provide better performance than the IC variety, there are any number of reasons. I'll only touch on some of them here, very briefly and in generalized terms, so feel free to do further research on your own. Semiconductor op-amps are typically subjected to some rather rigorous limitations, including being restricted from using the full supply voltage. Their output current is typically capped at around 25 milliamperes to prevent damage from excessively high loads, and they are limited to something on the order of a half a watt, resulting in the common choice to run them in the Class B operational mode. To ensure their stability in a closed-loop system with negative feedback, IC op-amps use single pole compensation. Now, the single pole refers to the lowest frequency pole, which has the greatest influence on overall frequency response. This method is necessarily simple and ensures stability by creating a predictable roll-off in its frequency response to prevent unwanted oscillations at higher frequencies, but it limits the device's bandwidth. Discrete op-amps do not suffer these limitations, in large part because they use individual devices, capacitors, inductors, resistors, diodes, and such, assembled on circuit boards rather than being an etched semiconductor manufactured from materials like silicon, gallium, or germanium. The ability to use specific capacitors allow them to be run in two-pole compensation, affording them much higher open-loop gain than can be achieved with IC devices. This affords them the ability to be operated in Class A mode, a provision that, on its own, will help the devices to be considerably more responsive to rapidly changing signals, produce more distinct and natural transient response, and render wider, more intricately layered and natural sounding soundstage and imaging performance. The two-pole compensation circuit design adds a specific combination of capacitors and resistors to the feedback loop of the amplifier, creating the two poles at the desired frequencies where the circuit's gain significantly drops. Though a more complex approach, introducing two poles provides more control over the phase response, enabling better stability, especially with high gain amplifiers. But the real question here is, how did they sound after the upgrade? It was immediately apparent that everything had improved yet again. It was as if there had been a synergistic combination of the benefits I'd realized with just one of the SparkoS discrete devices in place. Virtually every sonic trait seemed to have experienced a musically relevant step forward. Practically speaking, any characteristic one might consider important to music-loving audiophiles has undergone an effective and obvious degree of improvement. This full Monty Fosi SparkoS amalgam was now delivering musical information with an improved degree of broadband tonal balance, including more natural timbre of instrumental voices, resulting in a proficient reduction of tonal colorations and distortions. Detail was rendered more distinctly, presented even more deftly, revealing a newfound refinement of resolution and transparency. Recordings were presented with more accurate soundstage imaging and a nimbler ability to express dynamic range of all varieties. Perhaps most surprisingly, bass from the subsonic realm on through the upper mid-bass was tighter and more pitch controlled. As I listened over the next week to 10 days, the improvements and advances mounted as the system ran in and settled, and I found myself scratching my head at just how much the installation of these discrete devices were now able to extract from and contribute to the significant enhancement of their performance over that achieved with the original factory-installed TI ICs. So why am I so focused on the performance of these Chinese microamplifiers and the performance they are able to deliver when augmented by the contributions of the SparkoS Labs discrete devices? When you consider just how relevant the degree of sonic refinement and improvement the contributions of these SparkoS devices bring to these already overachieving and modestly priced amplifiers, I think you will begin to understand why I've devoted so much time and such enthusiasm to this project. When we consider that all in, with an initial cost of approximately $280 for the pair of V3s, and the purchase of the 4 discrete OpAmps from SparkoS at an additional investment of $350, your total investment for this project still lands at under $630 a pair. Even the best alternate performers available in that sub-$700 price range, entrants like the Cambridge AX-A35, the very affordable Dayton Audio HTA200, the Emotiva BassX A2, the Music Hall A25.3, or even the Rotel A10 Mark II, simply cannot compete with, let alone surpass, the sonic accomplishments of these modified monoblocks. Now, while it is true that nearly all of those choices offer more versatility and features than the SparkoS modded Fosi V3s, not a single one of them that I have heard can develop sound with anywhere near the same level of sophistication and refinement. Followers of the channel will be aware that for some time now, I have contended that we are in the midst of an incredibly fertile and remarkable period in which so many significant advances have been achieved, and in all manner of our music reproduction gear, sources, electronics, loudspeakers, and cables, that we simply must acknowledge that we are in the midst of a second golden age of audio. Another reality that we must acknowledge today is that the Chinese, while not necessarily leading the charge in creation or realization of state-of-the-art audio products, are capable of producing above-average performing products and delivering them to the market at absurdly affordable prices. The stock Fosi V3 monos speak to this truth, and rather loudly. When we take advantage of what may be achieved when combining such overachieving and affordable mass-marketed Chinese products, and leverage their performance with the use of some of the most creative and advanced devices available today, namely the exceptional Discreet devices built by SparkoS Labs, the results are simply too extraordinary to ignore. Unless you run across an unbelievable steal on pre-owned amplification gear, it would be highly unlikely that spending even 5 to 6 times as much would allow you to even begin to match, let alone best, the overall sonic tapestry presented by the Fosi V3 SparkoS Full Monty project. It is truly an amazing time to be a music-loving audiophile. As always, thank you for taking the time to drop by today. Further information on supporting the channel may be found in today's description section or at my website, theaudioanalyst.com. Please stay safe and keep the music playing. Till next time, cheers.